If you're in your 30s or close to it, and you're looking at changing careers, then this video is for you. And in this video, I'm gonna cover the following questions. How should you think about careers? What careers should you consider? How can you use experience as an advantage? And what challenges will you run into and how do you overcome them? So let's get started. Before we even talk about what careers to consider, we have to define what a career is. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of ways to define it, but for the purpose of this conversation, I'll define it in the following way. A career is a long-term profession consisting of a skill set within an industry. Now, what's key about this definition is that it's made up of two elements, that is skill set and industry. Meaning you could have a career as a product manager in tech, a financial analyst in the oil and gas industry, or a project manager in hospitality. And if you're in your 30s, you hopefully have developed some skill set in an industry over the last 5 to 10 years. Now, what's important about that? Well, skills can be transferable to other industries. Not all the time, and maybe not perfectly, but by and large, they're transferable. And industry knowledge can be useful in the context of other skills. Which means when it comes to changing careers, a great starting point is to really consider your work experience and how your skills or knowledge of an industry can transfer. Now, how you think about career pathing, as far as what careers to consider, you have to understand your base of experience versus where you want to go. Consider the following. Scenario 1, selecting a career that is completely different from what you have experience in. For example, if you're an accountant in the financial services industry, but you want to go into marketing at a tech company, if this is the case, you're going to have a more challenging path to get there. And that's not to discourage you, it's more to set the expectation of the time and effort that will be involved to get there. You'll likely have to consider some kind of education pathway and then be willing to come into a new career at perhaps an entry-level role at a lower pay than what you might have been used to. And you'll also have to take networking very seriously. But if you've discovered a passion for a certain career path and you're willing to do the work to get there, then by all means, go after it. Now, scenario 2 is selecting a career where you only change the skill or industry. This is what I would recommend as an ideal path for career change because it's easier relative to the first scenario. Also, you may not need to start at an entry-level role at a reduced pay grade. Of course, this depends on where you're coming from, where you're going to, so your mileage may vary, but I'd say this is true on average. For example, if you were an accountant in the financial services industry, you may want to consider some accounting role in tech, or maybe even a financial analyst position, which uses some of that same skill set, or at least enough to where it's not so much of a stretch to be considered for a role like that. Luckily, at this stage, you've got a good number of years of experience. Experience is generally the most important criteria for really any hiring manager. So you want to lean into your experience as much as you can to pivot to a new career. This is a great opportunity to take your skills to a different industry. When you view your career change through this lens, you want to explore options where you're already halfway qualified. This goes back to my point of if you have a certain skill set, can you transfer that to another industry? But another advantage to your experience is hopefully the network you've built in that period of time. When you explore roles that you're at least halfway qualified for, and you can pursue some of those new opportunities through your network, you'll give yourself the best chance of making that change. Now, the main challenge you'll run into is how you think about the job search. Now, what that means is if you're going to an online job board like LinkedIn and you're simply applying to a lot of different roles, then you're going to have a difficult time. Reason being, it's never been easier for someone to just apply to a job, hit a button, and they're done. Which means your application is going to be one of hundreds. And whether you have a good resume or not, whether you might be the most qualified candidate for a certain role, it's easy for your application to get lost in the mix. Now, I'm not saying to not do this. I'm not saying to not apply to jobs that are of interest to you, but when you do it, try to be as focused as you can with the roles and the industries and the companies that you're most interested in. However, your best chance of landing an interview is going to be through networking. Once you've pinpointed the skills and industry you want to move into, it's time to look at specific companies that align to your interest and your career goals. This is where LinkedIn comes in handy to identify people in your network that work at those companies, and preferably the job function you're interested in. If you can, also try to find people that are managers, people that actually have the potential to hire or help make hiring decisions. Now on LinkedIn, these might be people you're already connected with. And for those people, it's really easy to message and reach out to them. But if not, you'll be limited on how you can go about doing that. If you have LinkedIn Premium, which is a paid subscription, you have more options there. You can just message them without needing to actually connect. But the alternative really is just to simply invite them to connect. That's free to do. And with the invite, you have the option, and when I say option, I'd say it's mandatory, to also send a short note. You have a very limited number of characters to do that, but a simple message will suffice. And you can use the following script. Hi, hope you're well. Interested in a career transition to insert job title here, and your profile stood out to me. Would love to connect and learn more about your experience. Thanks. Now, if you're connected or you're on LinkedIn Premium, you can send them a more complete message where you'll want to briefly include your interest in the company and interest in a certain job role. But once you're connected with them and you've sent the introduction, I would recommend you try to schedule some time with them, whether it be a call, a virtual meeting, or an in-person coffee chat if you know them well enough. If that conversation goes well, you'll want to maintain that relationship. People make the mistake all the time of having just one conversation and never following up. Part of the goal here is you want to leave a good impression, and you want to make it known to that person that you have a legitimate, long-lasting interest in their company or in their organization, the job function, so that when opportunities do become available, you'll be more top of mind for those roles. So networking is important, and you'll need to do this no matter what. And when you combine this with good work experience, education, that's how you'll give yourself the best chance of success. Now, to learn a little bit more about what happens to your job application when you submit it, again, this is just to illustrate the point how important networking is. Make sure to check out my other video where I talk about that process. And if you need to fill in some gaps when it comes to experience with education, then make sure to check out this other video where I talk about online learning options. So with that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you around.